Hello and welcome to the agency. We have an hour or so of discussion amongst two iconic agents who represent the very best in football. Barry Silkman, Rachel Anderson. My name's Jon Smith. I just make up the numbers. A quick word from you both about financial fair play. This is the issue concerning the UEFA ruling that clubs can actually only spend a percentage of their gross turnover. Now, is that right? Is it wrong? Are the big clubs going to get round it? Guys, what do you think? Rachel?
The big clubs will get round it. Of course they will. They'll be like in America where they have caps, etc., where people end up with 4 tractors instead of 1 tractor and another car and another condo somewhere. So
they'll buy a major training ground or 2.
Exactly.
Real Madrid have been doing it for years, in fairness. They've sold
Yes.
their training ground 6 or 7 times now. What do you think, Barry?
Get round it.
Is it going to work?
No, it's nonsense. So also, how can you tell a man what to spend and what not to spend? If I want to go and spend £100,000 putting a new kitchen in, that's my choice. If I've only earned 30 grand that year, so why can't I spend 100 if I've got it?
I completely agree with you. But is that from a perspective? Forget fair play for a minute. From a perspective of competitiveness, is that good for the game? Is it good that an Abramovich or the sheikhs at Manchester can come in and go, I'm going to buy that, I'm going to buy him, I'm going to have 3 of them.
It makes the other clubs have to work a bit harder to get the players who are not off the shelf. This
is the closest the top has been for a while. But is that because the top 1 or 2 are breaking away, or rather have come through and are starting to break away, and the others are actually don't have the money, so they're all at a level now? How do you think it's going to play?
Hasn't that always been the way, though? Hasn't that always been the case? I mean, it's just that the name of the clubs at the top are slightly different now. But I mean, even going back to when Leeds were at the top of their tree, it was always Leeds, it was always Liverpool. And now it's always Chelsea, and now we're going to have Man City because they've got the money. But the other clubs, they had the money too. Less noughts on it, perhaps, but they still had the money, didn't they?
Yes, I don't think anything's changed. It's just the headlines are actually bigger now.
And as you said, don't tell them how they can spend their money. If they're silly enough to mortgage their kids to do it.
I think we all agree. We all agree that it's a bad situation to tell people how to spend their own money. Barry, would you take a player into Man City?
Would I?
Obviously, you take a top player into Man City. Would you take a player who may be spending a lot of time sitting on the bench because of the size of that squad?
I was asked this question before, and I said, well, I've got Messi, Ronaldo, Daniel Alves, Iniesta, Schweinsteiger, Ozil, Piqué, Fabregas, Mascherano, Benzema, Nani. I'll take all them in. Would I take?
But if you had an upcoming lad who was hot and trendy, would you take him to Man City rather than, let's say, Newcastle? Because you'd get more money at Man City, but you'd get more games, quite probably.
What I've always tried to do, and I've done this whenever I've brought a player in from abroad, and it's been reasonably successful, I try to place them just below what I think their ability is.
Yeah, good point.
Okay?
Yes, very good.
And I've always done that. I've done that right back when I brought Lucas Neill in and took him to Millwall. I thought he was good enough for a better club, although he was only just coming up to 18. I actually said to Mick McCarthy at the time, he'll be in your first team in 6 weeks. He was actually in the first team in 8 weeks. When I brought Mark Schwarzer here, I actually had the choice of Manchester City or Bradford. And I convinced him to go to Bradford. And I've got to tell you, even his girlfriend, who's now his wife at the time, phoned me up and said, what is it, a Bradford paying you more money? That's what she said to me on the phone. I said, I think you better go and find another agent, love. I hadn't even discussed anything with Bradford, not even a salary. I just thought that he could shine at Bradford, and at Manchester City, he might not shine. And I've just done that. And unless I have a player who I think is, if you like, Lionel Messi. I remember seeing Cristiano Ronaldo when he was 17 for the first time in the Toulon tournament. If I had that level of player, I would gladly take him to Manchester City. You know how long that'll come along, John? Probably never in my lifetime. So the bottom line is...
all 3 of our lifetimes, possibly.
Aim just below what they are. Otherwise, got no chance.
Good. So now we begin to see the feel of where the agents begin to position their players. So now let me go back to headlines again. And before we leave Man City, they spent 9.6 million on agents' fees this last year. The headlines have been shouting again that they're 9.6, Fulham are 951,000, Swansea 248,000. Are the fees? Well, I've got my own answer, of course, but for everyone who's watching it, how would we justify those fees, and is it disproportionate again that some of the clubs are just able to just splash out more fees to entice not good agents like you guys are, but irresponsible representatives to just pay people the other end and try and make things happen?
Well, that's always going to happen, isn't it? And they're paying for a service. One would assume that Man City didn't take in players they didn't want. And for all we know, the agents that represented those players got them for a better deal. You know, no one is privy to what happens on each and every deal. I mean, I always believe, and I still believe, that I get paid fees out of money that the people wouldn't have earned on their own, you know, whether it was a club or whether it was a player. So I know I definitely earn my money. I know you earn your money. Of course you do too. But I'm just, but it's not disproportionate if you're paying for a service and that service has been performed.
So go to the other end of the spectrum now, working with some of the younger players. Now, again, Barry, you were a younger player. You didn't have any representation at the time. You were a younger player a short while ago. So taking us back from then to how you were treated to now how you treat younger players. And I know, Rachel, you're going to have to be involved as well, because I know you're involved in bringing African players in into Europe as well, which has its own difficulties. So just give the people that are watching a kind of taste of the difficulties of handling some of the young. We've all talked about the big monies at the top at the moment. How about let's go down the other end and have a look at some of the younger players who this is their life break, maybe.
But you're having to deal with them and act for them for sometimes a number of years before they make it or that they're suddenly discovered.
And yet we're only allowed to sign players for 2 years.
I know.
Under FIFA regulations.
But then you can re-sign them after the 2 years, and one would hope. I mean, 2 years is a long time in football, though, isn't it? So. I'm not talking about bringing in 14-year-olds, you know, 17, 18-year-olds that can't come direct to the UK, not because they're not able to because of their passport, but because where they've come from, the cultural shock will be too much, the football's too fast, too physical, and sometimes you need to park them somewhere for a season or two to get used to the way of life of European football.
That's a good answer. And Barry, how do you deal with the families that go with that?
I've got, I have to say,
save us from them.
Up until today, I've never represented a player under the age of 17.
Because there are agents that are signing
No,
players
but they've got agents at
12.
14. I mean, I'll give you an instance. I don't know if I'm right or if I'm wrong. I have no idea. It's just how I've always felt. A few years ago, I had parents of a player who is at Arsenal. He's a midfield player, left-footed, has played for England, he's injured at the minute, and is rated at Arsenal as one of their better players. I won't say his name, but his initials are JW. I had his parents come to my house several years ago, he was 15, with him. And I just said at the time that I think it's perverse to represent a player of 15 years old. And I spoke to the mother and father and I said, I really don't believe that at this moment in time, Jack needs an agent. I just don't think he needs an agent. Now, the mother said to me, you're the 13th agent we've seen and you're the only person that has said that. Everybody has offered this and offered that. And I said, look, I can only tell you how I feel.
That's the problem, isn't it? Managing the aspirations of the family.
Correct.
Especially when they come from abroad, in some cases, African nations where they see this huge bundle of cash maybe and their passport to a lifetime beyond anything they could imagine.
And the Balkans
It's very difficult. And when they left my house, they said to me, do you know what, I think you're right. I said, look, when Jack is 17, 18, you want an agent, I'd love to be his agent. At this moment, I said to his dad, I think you can look after him yourself. And they said, you're right. They walked out and went and done a deal with another agent. So I don't think they listened to me very
Sometimes
much.
doing the right thing works there, Barry.
Yeah.
Just tell us, because it's that time of year again, isn't it? Tell us some quirky stuff. What's either of you the most bizarre transfer you've ever done, or a transfer story, or an incident? And I know, Barry, you and I've shared some evenings, so I know there are countless of them. Some of which I know you can't repeat.
I will repeat one. I've got to say one that I found this the most amazing thing. I've had a lot of incredible things happen since I've been in football, both as a player and as an agent. But I must say the most amazing thing was Neill. I brought him over on trial to Queen's Park Rangers, and Ray Wilkins was the manager. The assistant manager was Billy Bonds, and the reserve team manager was Johnny Hollins. And he trained there for a couple of weeks. I brought two lads over him and another boy called Andrew McDermott. And I went to watch Lucas play in a pre-season friendly at Stevenage. And he came on and played the last 25 minutes. And he was the biggest certainty I've ever seen to make it as a player, a certainty. When the game finished, I'm thinking, how much do I ask for? You know, yeah. He's come out of school. He was no money. I had to look after the guy in Australia. I thought, do you know what? I'll do a deal, £20,000 agent's fee, and get a percentage of his sell-on. They came over to me, all three of the guys, and said, we don't fancy him. We don't think he's going to be a player. And I couldn't believe it. I remember standing on the side of the pitch with Clive Berlin, who's now an agent. He was then the chief executive, and said, Clive, lucky these guys don't do what I do for a living. They'll all be bankrupt within a year. Anyway, cut a long story short, I took him to, he went back to Australia. I had his father on the phone to me, begging for me to bring him back. And I went to Mick McCarthy and to Reg Bird, God rest his soul, was the owner at Millwall. And I said, look, you've got to take this boy, 17 years old. You can't look at him on trial. He'll be a player. This is the deal, sign him. And they just did it. And he came over, and the father was on the phone to me, probably 30 times thanking me. He came over, I got a very small agent's fee. I paid all the agent's fee. My wife, I was married at the time, and I spent the whole agent's fee on buying furniture for him, and spoons and knives and forks and cutlery and bed linen and beds. I mean, we bought everything. In fact, I ended up losing £5,000 on the deal. 6 months into the deal, he was playing fantastic in the first team. And Reg Burr phoned me and said to me, we want to do a new contract for Lucas. I then get a phone call from Lucas saying, I don't want you to be my agent anymore. My dad's going to do the deal. And that was it. That was the end of me and Neill. I lost £5,000 on the deal.
You see, for every one we win, there are a few that go down. Right?
Exactly.
Colin, welcome back to the party.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, we can hear you.
You can hear me now?
We can.
Okay. A question I've got is obviously with today's foreign market and the amount of players moving in from different continents and all over the globe, I mean, is the temptation for an agent to sell foreign goods to clubs, try and dress them up, rather than to take Jon Smith from around the corner and say what a good player he is?
Well, I personally thought Jon Smith was very good in his time, but that's another story.
I'll give you the problem, Cole. Do you want to know the problem? This is the problem. Is when you've got a very promising young player in England, let's say as an example, and I'm not going to, this is nothing against his club, I'm just pulling them out the air, a Peterborough as an example. And you have a very promising young player who is 18, 19 years old. They will want £2 or £3 million for that player, minimum.
If he's a British player?
Minimum, if he's English. Minimum. I think what we should do here, and I've said this for years and years and years, and I've tried to do it by going to the clubs, is if they charge less money for the player to leave, but then if the player gets in the other team's first team, they end up with more money than they actually wanted. As an example, instead of giving £2.5 or £3 million for a player, give £1 million, but then give £3-4 million more on the games he plays, so that if he does make it, the selling club will end up with 4 or 5 million. I think
What's your view on
then
this?
you'd
Well,
get
it's
more.
alien.
more
It's
how do you-
alien
people
to the,
selling.
it's
do you
alien to
feel
the
about this?
people here. That's the trouble. And it's absolutely right what you're saying. That's exactly what they should do. But you can't do that when you've got the taxman knocking on the door and you've got a commodity. You want to try. They have to try and get as much as they can on. It's very short-sighted, but it's not the mentality or the rationale of English clubs. That's not how we've done it. In Europe, this has been going on for ages.
But that is why we can't. What Colin's saying is right. It's why we're not buying young English players. We're bringing in players from abroad, and the reason is that people like Colin don't see is that you do go to the lower clubs and you do inquire about their younger players, and they ask for
And they're
millions.
priced out.
So
That's-
immediately you back away and think,
that's-
well, no one's going to pay that. So you then have no option
and
than
there
going
are
abroad.
premiums on English players now because of having to have.
Yeah, and also we've got
homegrown.
the money here,
Yes.
and we're going to go to break very quickly. Colin, last words yours. Your summary.
I
Or
mean,
your
I
conclusion?
really hope that the up-and-coming leagues on the continent, like Spain, you know, get a bit more money really, and maybe we can start shipping some of our players out to them and see how long they last over there.
That'll teach them.
No, I think Celtic 67. I think Barcelona, at present day, they can show that you can bring up players from your own country and put them through cheap as chips.
Yeah, I agree, Cole. As long as you've got the coaches, mate, as long as you've got the coaches to teach them players, and I believe the young coaches should be all top ex-players. And if you've got the coaches, I agree 100%. The problem
Doesn't
is
make
if
them a
your
good
coaching
manager, a
staff
good
is not that
coach.
good, a lot of them are. If the coaching staff are not that good, they're not going to become good players. That's the problem.
Colin, we're going to have to go to a break. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a good Christmas, mate. And quick word, how's the Charlton ladies doing? We've lost you.
Doing very well.
Oh, we got you.
Got promoted to the Prem this year, and we're really hanging in there at the moment. We've got a young reserve squad. The Centre of Excellence moniker got taken off us in the FA overhaul. I think they were subsidising for money that they put into the Super League. But we've held on to a lot of good players. Got a lot of good players returning as well. So you know, we're a strong force, and I think, you know, we're very ambitious. So we'll see how we get on.
Good on you, mate. Wish you lots of luck, and
Enjoy it.
I hope you do well when you come up against my Arsenal ladies team as well. We'll see you after the break, chaps.
Sports Night Live is the Strictly Come Dancing of sports television, without the dancing or Robbie Savage. But apart from those two things, it's exactly the same. It doesn't have the judges either, but it's the best place for fans to come and chat about whatever's on your mind, football or sport related, with me, Mike Parry, and a host of brilliant guests, and Perry Groves. Join us, sportsnightlive.com.
Welcome back to the agency. We're now a few days and a few weeks away from the January transfer window. So let's have a quick discussion about what's going to happen. Any thoughts, any
I don't
problems,
know.
any issues,
It's a bit
any
soon,
inside
isn't it, really?
information? I know we can't do that stuff, but you know, we can you know, tease a bit.
Well, I
can't
can
we?
guarantee Man City are going to buy a player.
Actually, let's start at the very beginning. Do we like transfer windows?
No.
No, I was going to say that as well.
No.
Barry. Okay,
No,
well that's that
absolutely
question
can't.
answered.
I've never met anybody yet, footballers, managers,
No.
chief executives, chairman,
Nobody.
agents.
Okay. Give us a
anyone
very
who likes
give
it.
it why the average football fan finds it quite exciting on the last 24 hours, and if you ask most people, they go, well, yeah, it's sort of okay, isn't it?
But it's
Why
crazy.
isn't it okay?
It's crazy because it's like being in the sales. If somebody wants that and the shop's going to shut in 2 minutes, you're fighting over it. You pay over the odds. It's
Yep.
it's daft.
It's a false economy.
Absolutely
It's a false economy, and
It
sometimes
was
you end up
Mario
with
Monti,
players
wasn't it? The now installed head of Italy, who was responsible for this one.
That's
On the
right.
trade-off for the Bosman rule all those
good
all
luck
those years
with
ago.
Italy
So
then.
Was he?
yeah, it's a good luck Italy.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about January, Barry?
I'll
Is it gonna
tell
be
you
a
what I'd like
tickle
to do.
again, or
I'll
is
tell
it
you
gonna be
what
some
I'd like to
action?
do, John, if I could, but I can't because I've got a lovely daughter who lives with me. Got 4 dogs. I'd like to pack my bags, go to Dubai and lie on the beach, and then you call me on the 1st of February to tell me what's happened.
It's over, yeah.
Because you get driven mad by clubs who, they want something that's not there.
Yeah.
In effect, they want a striker who scores 30, 40 goals a season, is worth 30 million, but they want him on loan. And the club where he is, can they pay half his salary?
Yes.
I mean, that's what you
Exactly
get.
right.
They want something that's
And
just...
playing
Actually,
goal
talking
as well.
about
Yeah.
that, talking about that, here we have a situation now where Adebayor, for instance, is at Tottenham. They say nothing's going to happen in January particularly, but he's being paid 90, 100 grand a week out of his 180, whatever it is, 180 grand a week, something like that salary. Is it in Manchester City's opinion, do you think, better, or in Manchester City's best interest, to let him continue, if Spurs want him, because he's doing quite well at the moment, to let him stay there and intimidate clubs like Chelsea, or take him off Tottenham and have him back at the end of the loan?
Depends if he can get a game at Man City, then he wouldn't want to go, would he? So he's obviously not in their
It's
thoughts.
politics, though. That's the point, Rachel, isn't it?
Yes.
It's it's not
I'd
just.
do it, wouldn't you?
Yes,
I'd park them out,
of course, absolutely.
because then you get
You're
2 or
getting
3,
more
4
value out there by him destroying a Chelsea or a Newcastle than you are sitting on the bench in your club paying him his wages.
It's worrying though, isn't it? That if you've got that lovely enormous squad, you could park them out all over the place. So in
And they
actual fact,
have.
Man City are playing every game virtually.
Interesting point. Interesting point. Now, what do you think? Do you think they'll do anything this January?
I mean, I've got to say, you've got to remember something we haven't touched on yet, which is part of the reason why Adebayor's gone. You can only have 25 players in a squad now.
Yep.
Now, if you're at that 25,
Yep.
you can't play. Now, personally, with the Adebayor, I love him. I went to see him play 5 years ago in France. They wanted 10 million euro for him. A guy called Simon Steinrod told me about him. Ex-player, who's now an agent in France. And I used to play with Simple at Queen's Park Rangers. And he said to me, you've got to come and watch this player. Introduced me to him. I loved him. I couldn't find anyone to buy him. I must have gone to about 20 clubs in England. No one wanted to buy him. I love him as a player. Personally, only my personal opinion, he's good enough to play for Manchester City. But obviously he's not playing because of politics. It's not his football ability. Now, what do? Do you have a player not in your 25 who's not going to play, but you've got to keep paying him 180 grand a week? Or do you park him, as Rachel said, as you have said, John, with another club who can do damage and help Manchester City? It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Exactly.
I mean, it's a no-brainer. He goes to another club. And what a great club for him, Tottenham. Good football, terrific manager, and I think Adebayor, personally, I love him. I think he's one of the top 6
So there's
strikers
a
in
whole
Europe.
bunch
I
of
love
issues.
him.
A whole bunch of issues that go towards making a transaction happen. We have with us Stuart. Hello, Stuart. How are you, mate? We're definitely getting some issues on the. Are you there?
Hello.
Stuart. Hello,
Hi.
Stuart.
Hi, Stuart.
Welcome.
Hi.
Tell us what your thoughts are about or questions, thoughts, issues about the January transfer window.
My question really was, it must be hectic on a deadline day. What are the logistics if you've got like deals going on in different cities across Europe possibly? What are the logistics of how your day sorts out on a transfer deadline day? That was my main question.
Rachel, how does your day sort out
Well,
on?
thank God for emails,
Transfer
actually.
deadline day.
To be honest, not many deals are done. They might be completed, but most of the bulk of the work is done prior to the deadline. Well, that's my experience.
Unless your name's Daniel Levy.
Of course, yeah. Well, there's always the brinkmanship, you see. That's what happens. They sort of think they might be able to knock you at the last minute, or the player will lose their nerve and accept a lesser deal. That does go on, but it can be exhausting, but it's worse if you're not doing anything. I mean, I'd rather be exhausted than not be involved in anything.
Stuart's a Newcastle United fan. Now, the Andy Carroll
well
deal
done.
happened on deadline day, didn't it? Any
What a
thoughts about deadline day?
What a great move.
That in
I was
particular?
involved in a player going into Newcastle this
Off the
summer.
back of that, or
off the
back of
record,
that,
on the
yeah.
record and off the record, Demba Ba. And what a great deal for Newcastle to get rid of Andy Carroll and get Demba Ba, because I know who's a better player. Damien Commodi at Liverpool didn't agree with me, but I've got to tell you, Demba Ba, for me, totally different class to Andy Carroll.
You're the final arbiter of this, Stuart. You're the supporter. Which player would you prefer to have wearing the black and white stripes?
I'd prefer Demba Ba at the moment.
Well played. Great judge.
You don't have to be nice to him, by the way.
No one else does, are they?
Well, if you can get 35 million for Andy Carroll when he scored, what is it? He scored about 17 Premier League goals in his career. You've got to do that deal. I'm sorry, but
yeah,
I have to
right.
say, it's a good
the
deal.
name of the game for strikers, Stuart. I mean, I don't know if you agree with being a Newcastle supporter or any supporter. The name of the game for strikers is got to score goals. If you don't score goals, to me, anyway, unless the player who's playing up front with you is scoring 20-odd goals, if you can't score goals, you're a liability as a striker. Ian Dowie, years ago, Ian Dowie, I remember at West Ham, got 2 goals in 47 games. Great lad, Ian Dowie. It's a liability.
What do you think of the management at the moment? You happy at Newcastle? I mean, the whole management, not just your manager, Mike Ashley, Len Bias. Well-run club?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a well-run club. I'd say the manager's doing a very good job, and the chairman is a very good businessman. He's good at getting profit for himself. Not quite sure if he's getting profit for the club per se to help them get on, but he's seeing it as a business rather than a football team to win trophies as of right now, in my opinion.
It's very hard, though. So don't you think it's hard, mate, that to win a trophy now, when you're competing against, especially Manchester City and clubs like that, don't you think it's almost impossible to win something? I'm not trying to defend anybody, but it's so difficult to win something now because there are clubs out there that can spend money, as Roman Abramovich, the people at Man City, they're spending untold millions. Do you go along and compete with them and possibly, in effect, do your brains, or do you sit tight a little bit, spend a little bit more wisely, and hopefully, over the course of 2 or 3 years, build a really good structure and a really good football team?
Now, talking about building structures, you said once, I think you're on record, Rachel, as saying that Newcastle were the best club you've ever dealt with, or certainly one of the best clubs. Still think that?
Well, yeah, fair, very fair and sensible, which was, you don't normally get those 2 words when you're talking about football clubs, do you?
What do we think about the team next door now with a new manager, Martin O'Neill?
Well, he's a great manager, so we'll just see if he's, he does it up there.
Does that worry you, Stuart?
Your
next door neighbour?
I don't personally rate Martin O'Neill, but that's a whole other story.
You could be right. I don't think they're good players, Stuart, of they Sunderland. If you look at man for man, what Newcastle have got and Sunderland got, I think Newcastle's players, man for man, are definitely better players, although you've just lost Towles, haven't you, for the rest of the season?
Yeah, that's going to be a bit of a problem. But Sunderland don't have anyone up front who'll get them the goals that Demba Ba will get us.
No, for sure.
Well, that seems to be a good note to leave you, Stuart. Thank you very much for joining us. Wish you lots of luck. It's been an exciting run for you so far. I hope you have a great season and a good Christmas.
Thanks, Stuart.
Guys,
and,
before we
by
go,
the way, the management team are good people up there.
They are good people.
They're very good people. Trust me, good people.
Cheers.
Take care, mate.
Final point. We're going to go home in a minute. So, a thought, a tip, something going to happen in January. But give us a hot tip or a thought or something that you think is going to happen. I mean, we all know.
Well, as I told you, Man
we all know
City
Anelka's going from Chelsea. That's an obvious one. That's a starter for 3.
Okay.
Rachel, any particular thoughts, or Barry, any particular thoughts about what you think is going to happen?
I'll tell you what I think might happen. Okay, I think there could be a club go out there and buy a player, and it's a club who never buy players in January. I won't name the player. Okay.
You won't know the club.
But I'll tell you the club.
Okay, go on.
And I think they're going to spend. It's not 30, 40 million, but they never buy players in January, but I think they will now. Manchester United.
It's an interesting thought, because we all thought Man United have got a set squad now. That's them done. But you have to say, I think it's a good shout, Barry.
I would like to go to Ladbrokes and get evens.
Yeah,
I know
there's a couple of candidates to go in there. Absolutely right. I mean, are Arsenal going to look to bolster in the front?
Exactly.
They'll look at possibly Van Persie.
You probably know far more than I am. So you tell me what's going to happen.
Well, I think Arsenal will have to look at potentially Van Persie leaving. Hopefully, he, as a supporter, I hope he doesn't. But as a professional observer, you'd have to have cover.
What about coming though?
Well,
nothing's happened that way very often, has it?
No, they're going to need another striker. There's a bundle of clubs that are going to. I mean, Wigan are in desperate need of more goals.
Well, if you're the problem you got, John, is if you're a player, a good player, yeah, you're going to be playing in your own club. And if you're a player who's fallen out with a coach, would you go to a club who are at the bottom of the Premier League and fighting for survival? Can that actually enhance your long-term future? It did with Demba Ba last year at West Ham, to be fair. It did with him. He came in and scored, I think it was something like 8 goals in 14 games or 7 in 12. It enhanced him, but it isn't very often that you can get a player. And West Ham was ideal for him because he had a foreign manager who, when he met him, he loved him, and he was in London. Outside of London, would you go if you were potentially a top striker?
Why not?
Well, it's a question we're going to leave. It's a question we're going to leave hanging out there because we come to the end of our time. We're going to meet again in time, hopefully in the new year. Listen, I'm really grateful for you coming and joining me here, and thank you anybody and everybody who is watching us. I wish you all a good Christmas. I hope you join us in the new year. This has been fun, and thanks Barry, thanks Rachel for joining me.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Ray.
And you.